Hey, so it is a little bit after 8 on Monday, June 3rd. Um, I think the topic for today is forgiveness, and I'll get to why that is in a second. This day used to be the hardest day of the year for me. Um, it was a day where I secluded myself intentionally, where I bought as much liquor as I felt I would need to get through the day without going back outside, and I would drink. I mean, not that that was anything new, but on this day specifically, I would just drink until I passed out. I would cry. Um, Today's my son's birthday. If you caught the blog from when I changed the pictures in my car, you'll know that the story is basically that I had an ex-girlfriend with a son, and I really, really cared for both of them, but eventually more for him than for her. We went our separate ways, and we continued to share custody of the little boy. His name is Shaquan. I actually used to have him more than his mother did. I mean, anytime I wasn't at work, he was with me. I would get off at 8 o'clock in the morning. I would go get him. I would have him for day one, day two. And on the evening of day three, I would drop him off home. I would go to work on day four, and day one would be the next day. And if I took a day off of work or during a period of time where I was suspended from work because of my drinking and depression, I would have him for weeks at a time. So, I mean, he was truly my son in every way that he could have been, except for the fact that I didn't have him. And he was a reason for me not to drink. I used him as inspiration not to drink, and she took him away from me for what was supposed to be a small amount of time, and I didn't respond to it well. I didn't think it was fair. And, I got drunk, and I went over and I started a big fight, and I regret it. Put my hands on her, and I was in a drunken blackout. The only reason I know anything about it is my friend drove me over there, and she told me the story the next day. But that was it. That was in 2006, and today is his 10th birthday. He was going on 3 when that happened. So when I lost him, it was in April. I let some time go by. I went to the end of the summer. I didn't have a drink all summer, and I wrote her a letter and delivered it. I mailed it to the house, no response. So I went by the house a couple weeks later, and there were no blinds on the windows, and my heart just fell to the floor. As soon as I saw that, I knew that they had moved. And I tried her mother's house in Pennsylvania. I still had that number, and she answered and made it very clear to me that I would never, ever be seeing him again under any circumstances. And that broke me. So I was mad at her, but I was mad at myself. I felt like even though I was responding to what I thought was unfair, I didn't have to respond that way. And so I was mad at myself because I knew in my gut that this time was it. She'd threatened to take him before. We'd had fights, especially connected with my drinking. But I knew that this was for real. And I punished myself for the next year. One thing I definitely couldn't do was take communion in church, because that was the time in Catholic Mass, after you take communion, you kneel and you have personal prayer. And that's when I would pray for him. I would take communion and I would pray for him, and I would pray that God would bring him back to me, that God would keep him safe, that he would come back to where he belonged. I felt like he belonged with me. And I would break down crying, and for a long time I just stopped going to church because I couldn't take that part anymore. And I drank myself into oblivion. I mean, I tried to stay sober. I stayed sober for close to a year, but I was smoking a lot of weed, so I wasn't sober. And it just didn't take. I didn't hear back. My phone calls were unreturned. Any returns I got were nasty. It was difficult, and I finally broke in the summer of 2007. I don't think I got 5 days sober together. I think the most I got at one point was 11 days, but that was, and that was an outlier. And the truth of the matter was I could not forgive myself. So forgiveness has been a huge theme in my life. My healing started with me learning to forgive my father. An incredible book by William Paul Young called The Shack. If you haven't read it, you should absolutely get it. I mean, I'm telling you to get that book before you get mine. It's an incredible book, and in my book I talk a lot about my anger towards my father with the decisions he made and mistakes he made. But The Shack taught me to forgive him. When I finished The Shack, I picked up the phone and called my father. And we don't have the greatest relationship. We're not close. He's still not a great guy. But, I had to learn to let go of the anger and pain that I had towards him so that I could grow, so I could live my life. I was drinking myself to death because I was so mad at this man that didn't really seem to care. He wasn't really beat. Like, we call and curse him out. Okay, wouldn't hear from him for a year, and then you get a birthday card or something, like nothing ever happened. So there was never any real peace coming from me writing letters or screaming and yelling and hating him and all that. He was oblivious and I was miserable. So obviously my inability to forgive my father had a lot to do with the struggles that I had in my 20s, but so did my inability to forgive myself. And I think that's the message today, is that, people change, people grow, life offers opportunities all the time if you look for them and you take them. Sometimes you make mistakes, I wish that I could find him. I know where he is, but there's no point in going out there, that whole family hates my guts. So forgiveness from that end is probably not coming. And if I base my life and my happiness on something that's in someone else's control, I'm always going to be miserable. So I mentioned a week or two ago how much I love Brandon Heath. So this is Brandon Heath, and this is one of my favorite songs of his. It's called I'm Not Who I Was. And, I wish I could meet her again today, just to say, look, I changed, like if nothing else, you made a difference in my life, but I don't know that I'm ever going to get that opportunity, and I can't sit and let my salvation, my happiness, and my joy rest on something that I probably will never ever get a shot at, so I had to forgive myself, and that's big. I know some people in my life that have made some mistakes, and it's very clear that they're struggling with those mistakes and forgiving themselves. I almost killed myself with drinking because I couldn't forgive myself about the situation with Shaquan. I won't let that happen again, when I quit drinking, it was because I did something really, really stupid. Really, really embarrassing, and something that I really, really regretted. But I learned from Shaquan. I learned that no matter how bad I felt to the person that I had disrespected or hurt, in the process of my drinking and everything, that whether or not they forgave me, I could not try and prove how hurt or messed up I was in my own behavior by hurting myself more. It didn't make any sense. I had to make it clear that what happened affected me and it changed me, and I'm not going to go back down that road again. And it starts with learning the lesson, understanding that you're human, and growing and learning from your mistakes. You cannot learn from a mistake that you don't acknowledge that you make. We are human. We're supposed to make mistakes. Let yourself off the hook. God loves you, and that's the greatest truth that there is. And once you accept that truth, life starts to lay itself out for you a little better. Hope that message touches somebody today. I want to wish a very special, heartfelt 10th birthday to my son. Whether you ever see this or not, whether you ever hear from me again or not, I love you, and my life is different because of you. And that's a fact that will remain, that will never change. No matter who I become, I'll never stop giving credit to God for putting you in my life and for the impact that you made. So I thank you for that, and I love you. Happy birthday.